Hello, YouTube, and it has been quite a day where, well, let's be honest, we were all a little worried that the off licenses were going to close. Turns out they're not. There's a few more things changed in our lives, but the off licenses are going to stay open, it appears. Admittedly, during the period of doubt, I figured, well, gotta make sure Drinking Irish keeps going. Gotta keep the movement going. So, ran out of Jimmy Redmond's in Rathmines, and I got myself another 7 or 8 different beers from breweries I haven't featured yet and haven't got in my stock inside to make sure we can keep supporting more Irish breweries and get you out buying more Irish beer. Also, before we get to tonight's beer and the brewery in question, big shout out to the White Hag who had their online beer launch tonight. That's kind of cool. I didn't get to watch it because I was too busy doing my day job, unfortunately. It is quite slammed when you're working for a business paper as your day job during a crisis like this. And also I've got my magazine to produce. So it's a busy time for me, despite being based here in my gaff in Rathmines. Staying home and all those cliches around it, but actually do stay home, like don't be a whatever. I'm not sure if I'd get called out on YouTube for saying a shit, but oh well, don't be a shit. Don't be a shit. I mean, it's a video about alcohol. I'm guessing it's already being monitored to some degree. So, we are continuing, I am continuing this run here through some of the classics of Irish beer. It's the third night of it. We're definitely having a fourth night of what I consider to be classics. And of course, these classics are like, well, actually this one's a bit more than a decade old, but a lot of these are barely a decade old. But we are going tonight, actually, most of it be closer to 2 decades now. God, I'm getting on. We are going with Rebel Red from the Franciscan Well. A beer I first had many years ago when it was being sold in Dublin under the name Writer's Red, which Shane Long of Franwell can correct me in the comments. But my understanding was that the couple of pubs I could get it in, Paddy Cullen's in Ballsbridge and the Ginger Man, where it still is called Writer's Red and the Ginger Man, basically because it was too obviously a Cork name to really sell in Dublin. So we went with Writers because, of course, Dublin's great literary tradition, most notably me. Yeah, don't worry, that is not a COVID cough. And so let's pour this. Okay, now, a lot of y'all are familiar with this beer. A lot of y'all are familiar that I can't pour beer to save my life. Like I said, a lot of my family worked in bars. I just get a lot of bars in business the old-fashioned way, so we're going to let that settle for a minute. Yeah, you can mock me. Frickin' disgraceful. It's like, this guy drinks a lot of beer, talks a lot of beer. Why can't he pour a beer? Honestly, it's not being arsed, actually, that's not being arsed, but it's the gentle effort required, to be precise. And I've just had a wonderful dinner. It was a spice box. A homemade one though, so oddly no chips, lots of peppers instead. That's all good, I need to get, vegetables into my diet in order to avoid scurvy during the lockdown. Scurvy, the underrated, cause of troubles during the coronavirus crisis. Because some of y'all ain't eating that healthy. According to, the lads today, apparently 25% of our national calorie intake is based off takeaways, which I find a little implausible. And I'm saying this as a guy who has a lot of takeaways, but this is actually not a takeaway. So Dowling's, which is one of the butchers in the area, there's 2 great butchers in the area. You've got Dowling's, which is beside the Duns in the Swan Centre, and you got Laura's, which is top of the road here. And because I was doing my shopping out near the Swan, I was going to the Aldi there, I decided that day I'd buy the Dowling's one, so I got 2 of those, and it's a great spice box. So no chips, which is probably for the best, to be honest, because again, need the vegetables. But had that with the chicken, and I put a little bit of Frank's hot sauce on top, because there's nothing that can be made better with Frank's hot sauce. Yes, nothing in terms of eating. And you're all kind of going to me, what? Come on, I was like, no, I refuse to countenance any arguments about that. But our beer is ready, so we'll get back to the spice box in a second. So Rebel Red from Franciscan Well. Gentle. Sort of, what am I getting here? Of course, it's got spice box in my mouth, so that's kind of coloring things. So I'm trying to avoid that spice box taste. Sort of, what am I calling this? I'm a wordsmith, I should be good at this by now. Sort of like stewing apples, almost? No, it's not stewing apples. Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah, it's extremely caramelly. That's why I think it's stewing apple stuff. Yeah. So finally the spice box is tempering in my mouth and I can get enough to taste it. So let's, four odd for nearly 5 minutes into this video, I'm finally actually going to taste the beer. And that is an Irish red if ever there was one. Let's get another sip though. It's so mild, it's so smooth, and it's just classic Irish red. A little bit of caramel on the taste, but beyond that, just pure, here you go, which I'm loving. And yeah, like this is, you know, such a good beer with a spice box actually. I hadn't even thought, I decided to do Rebel Red tonight because I'm doing the classics before I decided I was eating a spice box tonight. But I gotta say, I should have had this with the spice box. Obviously I'm doing a video, so I can't really, but you know what I mean. But if I should have had me dinner out with you. It'd been a great idea. Oh man, that's so smooth, so gentle. So we're going to talk about Franciscan Well in a second, but I gotta find my can. Let's get the strengths to be safe. Sweet, malty and balanced, they say in this, by the way. They recommend flame grilled meats. Fair enough. They say it's best served chilled as well, which I'm like, I don't know. I like a bit of room temp myself now, Shane. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about Shane Long in a second. Trying to find where the percentages on this can. Sometimes it's a nightmare, and sometimes it's like me trying to find anything in my room. It's really obvious to everybody but me. 4.3. So, absolute session strength, if ever there was one. But yeah, so Shane down Fran Well, like I always try to make sure I step in for at least one when I'm in Franciscan Well. And it'll be gas, like, so, because quite often I'll go in, I'll ask a Shane there, and I remember, you know, a couple of times because he's so busy, he wasn't. The one time I go in, and next time after that, and I don't bother asking, and he walks straight out to me and sees me, because that's how Ireland works. But Shane, yeah, and I've interviewed him a couple of times, he's a great head. Like, what he's been doing with that pub and brewery, because it is a pub and brewery, for over 20 years now. It's one of the three sort of still standing from the mid-90s groups, O'Hara's and Porterhouse, who, yeah, big hint, we're doing Porterhouse tomorrow, are, you know, still going. So they've often, they're, you know, not old people who are the grandees of Irish beer, which is kind of weird, like, you know, when it comes to the advice they're giving, which is kind of weird. And so, yeah, it's like great brewery, lovely spot to visit. And what I like is though that, like, you know, all these other breweries that have sprung up in Cork as well, they've all got their own identity. They realised just being another Fran Well wasn't going to work because the Fran Well has that style down. And yeah, it's a classic, it's great. And yes, when you're going to go, hey, they're with Molson Coors now. Yeah, but they're still making great beers. And as far as I'm concerned, that makes them still an Irish craft brewery. You can argue over what's, you know, batch production and all that to your heart's content. Shove it up your jacksie, I suppose. You know, but me, it's a great beer, great people, and yeah, fantastic stuff. Yeah, the amount of times I've actually ended up doing work in Franwell, because quite often I'll be down in corporate basketball and I want to get the article finished, so I'll run into the pub, hammer out the piece, scull the fucking pint, and then, because I've got to go on to meet somebody else. Great times altogether. So listen, I'm powering through this. You can see it's a very easy going beer, but I'm going to try and slow it down because I want to watch a movie in peace later. So listen, back tomorrow night. Like I said, it's a Porterhouse beer tomorrow night. If you've been watching these videos, you can probably guess what beer I'm going for already. But until tomorrow night, keep drinking Irish, keep supporting Irish breweries, keep buying Irish beer, and sláinte.